There's a general election taking place in Virginia. Huge critical election. You've got statewide positions where folks are running. You've got the gubernatorial race. You've got Democrats and Republicans battling who's going to control the House. Of course, 2 years ago, Democrats took control of the House, and that's how Don Scott, my alpha brother, became the Speaker of the House, first time an African-American in Virginia history. They're looking to hold on to the House. Of course, in the Senate, Democrats keep control of the Senate. The most powerful person there is Senator Louise Lucas, who controls the money. But now when it comes to the Virginia Democrat, the governor's race, you have two folks. Your Lieutenant Governor, Winsome Earl Sears, who is running on the Republican side against Democrat Abigail Spanberger. And joining us right now is Abigail Spanberger. Glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. What immediately jumps out when we talk about these issues that we are facing, massive number of people in Virginia have lost their jobs because of the federal government cuts. African Americans, 1 in 5 federal workers, that's having a tremendous impact on black communities. More than 300,000 black women have lost jobs in this economy since January. What specifically are you looking to do to help government workers who have lost their jobs because of MAGA and DOGE, but also just broadly African Americans who are being the tax on anti-DEI that's put a lot of black women and black people out of work?
Well, Roland, I want to begin by thanking you. I know you're headed to Virginia very soon to campaign with Speaker Scott and support so many of our candidates who are running for the House of Delegates, incredible candidates who are going to flip their seats. And the issue that you were raising of, the first round of DOGE and now the impact that we are feeling of DOGE essentially 2.0 right now is devastating to Virginia's economy and to Virginians. And so before I get to the what am I going to do about it, the first piece of it is that right now we have a governor and a lieutenant governor who are saying nothing. Since January, when the assault on the federal workforce began, they have said nothing. They have justified it. They have said everybody loses their jobs from time to time. And they have not stood up for Virginians and for their livelihoods. And the impact, it has a significant ripple, a wave effect. It is federal workers. It is government contractors. It is small business owners. It's restaurant owners. It is people across our communities who have seen the chaos created by this administration, by DOGE, and now by these additional waves, these punitive federal firings that the president is choosing to inflict upon so many federal workers in the middle of this town. And the impact is enormous, and is disproportionately impacting Black women in particular. And so as governor, once I am in the seat, November 4th, as our election swearing in comes in January, it will be a priority for me to support federal workers in their transition into the private sector or state public sector.
When you say support, what does that mean? So, for instance, your counterpart in Maryland, Governor Wes Moore, they've been really hit hard, and they've been really proactive about placing federal workers in state jobs and others. And so, what specifically are we talking about?
Well, and so looking at what Governor Moore has done is a tremendous and clear example of what actual leadership looks like in the face of attacks on your workforce. And so as governor, I will, in some cases, copy and mirror the strong efforts of what it is that he is doing, ensuring that through the office of the governor that we are prioritizing and making both prioritizing the transition of fired federal employees into state service, where that might be their choice, but also ensuring that we are, supporting the transition of the workforce. And typically what that means is when recruiting businesses to Virginia, when working with large-scale employers within Virginia, ensuring that the Virginia Office of Economic Development, ensuring that the governor's office, that a future Secretary of Commerce are focused on using among the many great benefits of bringing business and investments to Virginia is the fact that we have an incredible workforce that is mission driven, that is focused, that has a breadth of experience that frankly has been cast out of the workforce because of the Trump administration. And as someone who once, many years back left federal service myself, I was a CIA officer. The transition into the private sector can be a challenge. Everything from translating your resume into things that private sector employers may understand, to restarting the experience of going through a very different type of interview set. And so, in some of the ways, we have, in addition to strong examples to our neighbors from our neighbors in Maryland, we have the mechanics of it is we have strong programs for military veterans who are transitioning out of the military who face some of the same challenges. And you also noted the attacks on DEI. We've seen that in Virginia, particularly initially began at Virginia Military Institute.
Right, and so go to my iPad. You'll see the first black superintendent at VMI was forced out, and he said it was politics, not job performance. You've got Donald Trump, who in his administration constantly attacking the president of George Mason, Gregory Washington, as well. And so, if you're governor, what are you going to say to Donald Trump and his administration for their constant attacks on African Americans, but it also, especially African American leaders in education?
And African-American leaders in education, whether it's General Wins or President Washington, and even President Ryan at UVA, who he's a white man, but he put in place important, valuable, really strong DEI policies in place and was forced out as a result. As governor, I'm going to stand up for the academic freedom of our institutions. As governor, I will make clear that that teaching our whole history, particularly in the Commonwealth of Virginia, is essential for the ability of all of our children and our citizens to understand, both the greatest triumphs and the greatest tragedies that have occurred within Virginia, and understanding our strengths, our greatest weaknesses, our greatest sins, and our greatest successes. And we have a governor who, at the high school level, has endeavored to erase any sort of, quote unquote, divisive history, which frankly is just history. And we have a governor who has not stood up for incredible leadership. You put the picture of General Wins up. Here's a man who attended Virginia Military Institute himself, went on to have a 30-plus year career in the United States Army, returned, kind of not necessarily seeing it was in his usual path, returned to VMI to lead the Institute at a particularly challenging time, and every year received performance related bonuses because he had brought up the numbers of recruits,
right,
had increased class size, was doing incredible things. And then when you look at Gregory Washington, the president at George Mason, the recognition of how much he has expanded upon and grown that institution is clear, because seeing the attacks coming for him, frankly, in large part, in the absence of a governor willing to do it, it was the business community who stood up and made clear that everything that President Washington has done has been to the great success and benefit of the larger kind of economy.
Right. So here,
Virginia region.
So here are African American leaders doing the job. They keep talking about merit, but then they're trying to take them out because they're black. I only got about 5 more minutes. I got to ask you this here. You have some robust HBCUs. To your point, we're going to be at Virginia State University on Thursday on the campus there. I did the commencement before. I've been in Norfolk State. I've been to Virginia Union and others. And what plans do you have, specific plans for investment in these universities? When I travel to a lot of these HBCUs, when I look at facilities, look, University of Virginia looks a hell of a lot different than Virginia State, than Norfolk State. When I even private HBCUs, and the reality is when we start talking about black doctors and black engineers and black lawyers, they're coming out of disproportionately HBCUs. Now they're going on to predominantly white institutions for graduate programs. But for what type of investment are we talking about if you are a governor that these HBCUs can expect to train the next generation of leaders?
And I'll just pivot back to this very quickly and then get to your question. During my time in Congress, I was on the HBCU caucus. I served on the Ag Committee, sat next to Congresswoman Alma Adams, who was the chair of that caucus. And we worked aggressively to ensure that we were pushing additional funds, particularly to the 1890s institutions that for years upon years upon years had been underfunded compared to the 1860s institutions. And now, given the experience and the breadth of the work, you're going to Virginia State. Virginia State is our land grant university. They are incredible. The president there, the dean of the agriculture department, everybody's fantastic. I hope you enjoy your time there. But we have seen what happens after decades and decades and decades of underinvestment, certainly not just in our land grant institutions, but in our HBCUs more broadly. As governor, I have already made a commitment to ensure and to aggressively work. And you mentioned Louise Lucas, who is the head of our Appropriations Committee in the Senate, and the leader of the Appropriations Committee in the House of Delegates.
And don't forget the biggest supporter for HBCUs is a man from Virginia, Congressman Bobby Scott. He's responsible for, yes, there's Alma Adams, but your former colleague Bobby Scott deserves a lot of that credit for those billions going to HBCUs.
Virginia's third, and certainly with Norfolk State and Hampton in his district or in his region, I'm trying to think before and after redistricting, has been an extraordinary advocate. And so I have spent a tremendous amount of time, in addition to my commitments to ensure that we are really meeting the needs and pushing more funding to HBCUs. I was down at Norfolk State in the last month or so talking to some of their board members. And the amazing thing is they continue to grow numbers because it's an incredible school. And people across the country want to come to Virginia because we have 5 HBCUs. And they're incredible. We've got 2 publics, 3 privates.
Yep.
They're big, they're small, they're land grants, everything. But they are still putting students in hotels because they do not have the physical infrastructure.
And that's happening at HBCUs around the country. Yep.
And that's a real challenge. And so ensuring that we are seeing it both in the recognition of the value that they bring to Virginia. You look at the numbers of the members of our General Assembly. So many of our members of the General Assembly leadership are themselves graduates of HBCUs, either undergrad or later went back for graduate school. And ensuring that we recognize the value of HBCUs from an educational perspective. But, the argument that I will always make to the broader Commonwealth is they're drivers of our economy. People come to Virginia because of our HBCUs and stay in Virginia and create businesses and grow businesses and, are innovators. And the examples, are just limitless of people who have carried on that journey. And ensuring that when someone arrives with a dream of going to Hampton or a dream of going to Virginia Union, that their experience from start to finish needs to be one that is one of success, because frankly, the presidents are doing the work, the professors are doing the work, and it's places where some of those state supports have fallen short in the past that make it so someone might transfer out, or they might leave what had otherwise been their dream school. And that's to the detriment of that student, to the detriment of the HBCUs. But I would argue to the detriment of kind of Virginia as a larger entity and ultimately down the road an economy.
Last question for you. Obviously, Democrats want to sweep all statewide seats. You're running for governor. You've got folks running for lieutenant governor. You got Jay Jones running for attorney general. African American, had him on the show as well. Is this still a unified ticket? Do you still stand with him with all of this, with this text messaging controversy? I'm hearing from black voters out there. They saw how Democrats stood behind Ralph Northam. They saw what happened to Justin Fairfax. And so do state or Virginia Democrats, are you still unified unified standing with Jay Jones as a unified ticket running in November?
Well, I would note, and this was some time ago, but at the time, there were many of us who had put calls on the governor then to step aside. As it relates to the current circumstance with Jay Jones, when the text messages first came out, I had a conversation, a good conversation with Jay, where I spoke very frankly, and he spoke very frankly. And to his credit, he spoke very clearly about these text messages, about the fact that, I think he said that they made him sick to his stomach to go back and read. And for me, I very publicly denounced them. I found them to be, abhorrent, and particularly at a time in this moment where we've seen heightened violent rhetoric, and certainly we have seen politically motivated murders and throughout the summer more recently. It's incredibly important that everyone be very clear-eyed in our denunciation of any violent rhetoric. And again, he has apologized. He has stated that so plainly. Notably, the Republicans who just made this information available held on to it for years and years and years. And so if they had wanted to make this known earlier, I question their motives in waiting until October. And importantly, as I mentioned at the debate with my opponent, on the Democratic side of the aisle, we will denounce violent rhetoric, whether it is our friends or our political opponents who are uttering it. And importantly, on the other side of the opponent, or whether it's Jay's opponent, they will only denounce the violent rhetoric when it comes from Democrats. And even my opponent routinely calls me her enemy. And it's the type of rhetoric that I think, not to mention, of course, everything that the president says on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And so, Virginia voters know what's at stake. We're all campaigning hard, and we're going to win, and we're going to sweep our statewide seats. We're going to flip all three of them. And then we're going to work hard and do the things that we promised to do. And I think there's an earnestness and an importance when we hear someone who, recognizes that they, made a mistake, or they said something they shouldn't have said, or even when taken out of context, that, I think Jay's willingness to take accountability and be very clear-eyed about it, it speaks to his character. And I think that as Virginians are going about making, their decisions about who to vote for, they'll take that into account, and they'll look at who has stood up for them and who has not. And the role of Attorney General it's a decisive and important one. And so moving towards this November, I do believe we're going to flip all three seats. And I believe that Jay is doing the work of endeavoring to rebuild trust and to earn the trust of voters. And certainly, as we head towards November, I want to keep talking about my race. I know he wants to keep talking about his race, and Gonzalo the same. And we want to ensure that we flip a number of the seats in the House of Delegates as well in the process.
So I appreciate that. Last point, earlier you were mentioning HBCUs. Let's not forget, when the Biden administration came out with their report, they said that there were 16 states where HBCUs were underfunded between 1987 and 2000. Virginia State is owed $277.5 million. The Virginia General Assembly needs to properly give them that money. That's money that they were cheated out of, that went to other universities. So as opposed to any new money, that money should be repaid. So I would hope you will commit to that as governor for them to get it. And so the other states on here are Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida. I've been to a lot of them. Tennessee is $2.1 billion. But this is a perfect example of one of the reasons HBCUs have been underfunded, because they were cheated out of land grant money that was supposed to go to them that went to predominantly white institutions. So if you win, I hope that becomes a priority to put it in the budget for them to fund Virginia State and give them that money.
That is a priority. And as you're going to Virginia State, I would say one more thing, just as an incredible example, I think, for the rest of the country. Virginia State and Virginia Tech in recent years have begun working together in a partnership that is extraordinary, that benefits Virginia Tech, that benefits Virginia State, and most importantly, benefits agricultural research across the Commonwealth of Virginia. And it is a model for the rest of the country. That is in no way to kind of look past the historical funding challenges that Virginia State has faced and the realities of what that means today. But I do think that Virginia State is an extraordinary example of what partnership between universities, between land-grant universities can be. And hopefully into the future, we'll see other states following that incredible example.
We did cover tonight, but I'm definitely going to get to Black-owned businesses on Thursday, and that's also a huge priority of mine as well. And those state contracts, that's critically important.
I would agree, particularly with all the attacks coming out of the administration in Washington.
All right. Abigail Spanberger, I appreciate you joining us on the show. Look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your time in Virginia again. Thank you, Roland.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.